Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Colin Mahan, and I'm a program manager at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. For those of you who may not know, the NASDAQ Center is a nonprofit dedicated to enabling entrepreneurs from all over the world to realize their maximum potentials and grow. As you may have just seen in the chat, the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center, along with our partner Mentor Club, launched a free mentor matching platform for entrepreneurs called Mentor Makers. Create your own advisory board to guide and inspire you with in-the-moment mentorship from topic experts and professionals dedicated to providing exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. Together, we will build the greatest exchange of knowledge and expertise in service to entrepreneurs in business today. So check it out, find or become a mentor today by using the link in the chat. Mentorship matters to all entrepreneurs. Their success depends on it. Quick housekeeping item. We're going to open up for live Q&A at the end of the event, so please submit your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation. Again, none of what we could do would be possible here without support from our sponsors, including NASDAQ, Lehigh University, Bank of the West, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Woodruff Sawyer, BPM, NZTE, and Microsoft for Startups. We are humbled by their contributions. Again, if you're joining us for another time, we're trying to understand how sentiment is among the entrepreneurs we work with. So we're going to start off by taking a poll to see how you're doing and what's keeping you up at night. So I'm going to launch that poll. Let us know how you're doing. How are you feeling with the COVID-19 pandemic still strong, but also looking up? So we appreciate your responses. The second question, what's keeping you up at night, will help us understand what sort of programs and workshops like this one we should be offering to the community of entrepreneurs that we serve. So I'm going to give this a couple seconds, and then we will get started with our event. But appreciate you guys submitting your responses. Looks like optimism's at the top of the key, which is good news. And with our topic areas, it's kind of a little bit all over the place, but giving it another second or two, I'm going to end this poll and share the results. So optimism's at the top of the key, so that's amazing with the vaccine getting more exposure to more people who need it. Also, marketing is what's keeping most people up at night, which makes sense considering the topic that we've got today. Without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome in the chat or by clapping James Oliver Jr. He's the founder and CEO of WeMontage and the ParentPreneur Foundation. Welcome, James.
Hey, how's it going, Colin?
Good luck. Happy to have you.
So excited to be here, man. Okay, there, Colin.
Yep, over to you. You
All
can
right.
launch your presentation.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I'll do that right now. Hang on a second here. Let's get this thing queued up. Hopefully, as many people here, I probably have way too many screens open.
I'm the same person, no worries.
Yeah, man. All right, so let's just do a screen share.
Yep, looks
Stop
great,
share.
James. Oh,
Nope,
just
hang on a
got out
second.
of it.
Yep, no, I did because I got to press the share sound button. There we go.
Cool.
I just wanted to double check and make sure that was selected for all video sharing purposes right here. All right, perfect. Hey, everybody, welcome. Hey, if you guys could just drop in the chat where you all are chiming in from, it would be great to know where people are. I think that might facilitate some engagement amongst you guys as well. So I'm James Oliver Jr. As Colin mentioned, I am the founder and CEO of WeMontage.com. I'm a published author, and I am recently the CEO of the ParentPreneur Foundation, which I founded during the pandemic to empower Black parentpreneurs so they could leave a legacy for their children. And throughout my journey of launching WeMontage, which I launched back in 2013 after going through a tech startup accelerator in Wisconsin called Generator, on my own, I was able to get a lot of PR. And I know that PR, it matters. I know a lot of people want PR, and PR can be very helpful. And we'll talk a little bit about this, but PR is not a panacea. It's not going to solve whatever fundamental business problems you're having. But let's talk a little bit about PR because it can be helpful. It can help you with sales. It can help you with brand awareness. It can help you with content for your social media channels. It can also help with just credibility markers when people come to your website and make them feel comfortable purchasing your product or service. So real quick, the agenda for today, and I apologize, I talk really fast because I'm from Brooklyn. I've been gone for a long time, but I just can't stop it. So sorry for that. So I want to talk a little bit about the mindset that you need with what I call shooting your shot. Because at the end of the day, this is you shooting your shot. I'll talk a little bit about that. I also want to talk about my experience with PR and give you some practical tips for how to get PR and then some tools and resources that you can use to do this on your own. So shooting your shot is a mindset. Like, what is shooting your shot? Shooting your shot is sending that cold email, making that phone call, making that connection request on social media, asking for that introduction, asking for the sale. You know, in my experience, people don't shoot their shot typically for one of two reasons. One is they're scared or they don't know how. So now, I sort of talk a little bit about being scared. Like, don't be scared. Like, you can do this. Nobody is going to be able to tell your story or convey your value proposition as compellingly as you can. Like, you can do it. Like, you got this. Like, don't be scared. And the other thing I will say in terms of don't being scared is, look, one of the keys to this thing, if you're working in sales, you have to have a lot of productive activity. You have to have a lot of balls in the air. So if you have balls in the air and, you know, one doesn't come down or somebody rejects you, moving to the next point here, you don't care because you know you have enough productive activity. So if somebody rejects you, like, don't take it personally. That's one key thing. A lot of people are not built to take rejection, but it's not personal. It's rarely personal. It's just all part of the game. Sometimes no means just not right now. The timing's not right. You know, continue to follow up appropriately. Don't take rejection personally. I think this is really, really, really important. And the last part, like, swag up. Like, you got to get your swagger and your confidence on 10 because that confidence will come through when you're sending your emails to someone or you're talking to someone in the media, and the confidence is infectious. Like, people feed off of it. And in fact, it feeds off of itself. So you got to get your swagger on 10. Don't be scared. Don't take rejection personally, and get your swagger on 10, and you can shoot your shot. All right. So let's go. So I want to show you, this is a quick little sizzle reel of 3 things from my business, WeMontage. So on my own, I was able to get my business on the Today Show 3 times, Good Morning America, Martha Stewart's blog, Money Magazine. I was on CNBC's version of Shark Tank which is actually on here. It's called West Texas Investors Club. It's canceled now. And just a variety of other things. So I just want to show this to you, and then I can talk a little bit about how I was able to accomplish some of this very quickly. Got it. This is an example, and I pulled it back a little bit so you could see that it actually comes off the wall and goes back on the wall pretty effortlessly. And these are my beautiful twins, Thaddeus and Zoe, in the picture.
Oh, babies and boxing gloves, those go great together.
The reason I included the boxing glove in this particular montage is because, you know, the kids were fighters. They were born 3 months prematurely, and when they were born, they only weighed 2 pounds apiece.
Speaking of gifts,
yes.
Look at this.
This is amazing. Removable photo wallpaper by WeMontage. This is like my highlight for 2014 for your images. I have this up on my living room wall. This is totally removable wallpaper. So think of college room, dorm rooms. Think of military rooms that you can't put nails in, or hallways.
So you create the montage you want in your computer?
You log online, you upload the photos, they do everything else and ship it to you.
Great idea.
$69 and up for
Okay, what are some of the other creative options? There are a lot of other things you can do with the photos.
There really are. And, you know, we thought about going beyond just sticking a picture in a picture frame. So you can do art. We did large scale from WeMontage.com, which is removable photo wallpaper. So it's huge, and you can just put it on a wall, take it down, move it around, really neat.
Yeah.
Okay, so anytime I show that, people are like, oh my God, how did you do that? How did you get on the Today Show 3 times? So we are going to talk about some tips and tricks, but I will tell you, it's always a combination of luck and hustle. There is no silver bullet to this thing. So let's look at the Today Show, because that happened first. So when I just launched the business, I just went through Accelerator. We raised $330,000 to launch the business. And we had just gotten the website to a point where the software was stable enough for people to be able to go on the website and create their own product. And so how'd that happen though? So I woke up one morning and a friend sent me a text message, said, hey, I just saw that NPR was doing some day in the life of a Black tech executive, which is just not a lot of us, quite frankly. And I took that information, I went on Facebook, I went on Twitter, I reached out to them, told them my story, and they were like, oh, this is so cool. We would love to include you. So that's the hustle part, right? I was hustling. At this point, I didn't have any major splashy PR hits that I could point anybody to. And then more hustle from my standpoint, I realized that Mario Armstrong, the guy in that Today Show video you saw, who was the digital lifestyle correspondent for the Today Show, Mario was curating the tweets for the daily tweet chat that they were doing. So I just went on Twitter and I reached out to him, and I was like, you know, maybe he would notice me because he had a ton of followers. Maybe he would like WeMontage, and maybe he might one day put WeMontage on the Today Show. I mean, I know it's a lot of maybes, but yeah, all that worked. He noticed me. He liked the business. He thought the product was dope, and he got us on the Today Show 3 times. Like, Mario's a good friend now. He's on my advisory board, and he wrote the foreword to my book. Let's talk about, so Good Morning America, how'd that happen? Well, that was really unusual because the Good Housekeeping lifestyle producer on the far right there in the pink jacket, she was just looking for some interesting photo products. This was Michael Strahan's first day. It was the end of summer. I think it was like the day after Labor Day. And this is very uncommon, but sight unseen, product unseen, she found us on Google, went to the website, but the key is because she saw all those other credibility markers like Martha Stewart, Today Show, these DIY Network, she saw these other things. She knew that the product was dope, and she felt comfortable adding that. So this is what I was saying, how it can be helpful from the standpoint of giving you these credibility markers to make people comfortable with trusting the product or service. And lastly, the West Texas Investors Club thing, you know, I think it was the same thing. They have producers always looking for people for their shows. They landed on our website somehow. I don't know. I applied for Shark Tank twice. I never made it on there. I mean, I posted some stuff on social media. They might have been looking for Shark Tank entrepreneurs who didn't get on the show. I think I was on some Forbes article, up and coming entrepreneurs that didn't make it on Shark Tank. Maybe they saw that, I don't know, came to the website, saw the credibility markers, and then they encouraged me to apply. I had to jump through a ton of hoops, but I was ready. When you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. I was ready. So that's how all that happened. And how do I change slides here? All right, next slide. Okay, so this next one is interesting. So I have 3 tips for getting PR, but this one's interesting because it started out as a radio interview here in Atlanta that they happened to shoot video for. The Dana Barrett show is on AM radio here in Atlanta, which I hustled my way, just used some networking to get to her. And I was able to get her to agree to do an interview. But what's cool is after we did this interview, shortly thereafter, she was a contributor for Forbes. And so she wrote an article about me and the business on Forbes and included the video on there. So I think this is an interesting way to show you how these things sometimes can ladder up. But let me just go ahead and play this where I share some of my 3 compelling tips for how to get PR on your own.
Success with this, not just in terms of product sales and what the product is and interest and all that, but you've been covered on national TV a number of times. How did you make all that happen?
So that's a great question. So we've been on the Today Show 3 times, DIY Network, Martha Stewart's blog called it a core item, all homeowners should know. Good Morning America, Money Magazine. I was on CNBC's version of Shark Tank.
So who'd you sleep with? No, I'm just kidding.
So no, that's a great question though. So that's a great question though. So I think a lot of founders, they really desperately need PR for their business to get out there, right?
Everybody's like, I want to have that guy's secret sauce.
I will tell you, you can do it. Like, you don't need to pay an agency. So here's my 3 best tips. Like, got a pen? Write it down. Tip number 1 is like, build your community before you need it.
Okay.
Right? Like, get in some Facebook groups, get in some LinkedIn groups, build relationships, add value when you can.
Yep.
Right? So that when you need something, people are keen to help you.
Yeah.
Tip number 1. Tip number 2, learn how to send cold emails. People communicate asynchronously.
Yeah.
Right? Don't call them on the phone because they ain't going to answer and they ain't going to call you back. So don't waste your breath leaving a voicemail.
Yeah.
Right? Learn how to send cold emails. That's how we got featured on CNET.com. That guy, Rick Boyd, he wrote an article, how the 5 mistakes people make when they're pitching them. So I read this article and so I send them this long email. And at the end of it, I was like, by the way, I read your article. Hopefully I didn't screw it up. And in 5 minutes, he got back to me like, this is awesome. You nailed it. And he was on CNET and we got like $9,000 in sales from that.
I got chills. Got chills.
And finally, use services like justreachout.io. Like, if it's a specific topic you want to find out who's writing about it, go on justreachout.io, put in your subject. It will tell you who's writing about what. Then it will give you the contact information for the writer. And you get pitched all the time. How many of these pitches are really crappy, right?
Oh, 90%.
They're so crappy.
Yeah.
Learn how to send a cold email. Learn how to pitch.
Yeah,
right?
And by the way, keep it brief.
Yeah, keep it just a couple of sentences.
Right.
Nobody cares about the life story.
And don't give me a couple sentences and no link.
Right. Hey, put a link. You better know what the person does that you're pitching. Make it relevant.
Yeah.
Right. Just short,
100%.
sweet, right between the eyes. Those 3 tips, that's like $100,000 worth of advice right there.
I love that. Well, also to that end.
All right. So a couple things about that. Build a community before you need it. So, hey, Colin, can you just jump on for a second here, please? So I know you guys have a community feature. Is that like a platform for the people from the community here?
Correct. Yeah, Mentor Makers is a way to connect with other entrepreneurs. We're working on a larger platform.
Okay, so perfect. So that's a perfect example. Like, get in there, contribute, engage. Don't be all self-promoty and super salesy because nobody likes that. But give. And then when you have an ask, you go in, because now you have relationships with people, you make an ask, people will be more likely to help you. So the other thing was, 3 things. Build a community before you need it. Use services like justreachout.io, which I don't use anymore because they shifted their business model. It's B2B now, but I have another one called Respona that I will get into on the back end, and learn how to send cold emails. So she talked about that in there. If you're listening, she gave some really valuable tips. And I'm going to show you an example here in 1 second of some cold email tips and a cold email that I sent to Mark Cuban of all people. So cold email tips, compelling, short email subject. I think, so if you use things like MailChimp to send emails, when you're firing up your email, it will tell you the optimal number of characters. I think it's like 60 I think it's 60 characters. I can't recall exactly, but it's okay to use an emoji in there. Like if you want to put like a little sparkly blast or like a fire flame thingy at the front, helps the email stand out in the email box and in the inbox, but don't get too crazy with that. And the other thing is if you use the person's name at the beginning of the email subject, that will increase the open rate 20%. And this matters, like that is significant. So here's an example of an email I sent to Mark Cuban. I found his email address online. I just Googled it. mcuban@gmail.com. So I sent, so at this time I was working, this is just before I started my foundation. It's back in like, what was this, May. And I was doing a feature on series on my blog, which I don't really write that much on anymore because I'm so focused on my foundation. But I was featuring influential parentpreneurs to just inspire the readers of my blog. And so I'm going to read this post to you, this email that I sent to give you an example, a real life example of reaching out to a billionaire with a cold email that actually freaking worked. It was amazing. So I say, hi, Mark. I'm a Morehouse alum and tech entrepreneur at WeMontage.com. Remember, she said, make sure you have a link. There's a link. Why does that matter? Because they need to be able to, if they want, to click through and check you out. All right. So WeMontage.com turns your picture into peel and stick wallpaper. It's been on the Today Show, Good Morning America, blah, blah, blah. And here's an example. So I don't normally recommend including a picture of the product or service, but in this case, it makes sense, right? Because my product, it's visual. So I included a super dope picture. The purpose of that is to keep them reading down the page, right? So, sorry, like you, I'm a parent and my twins are 7 years old. Here's an old pic of my twins. Why did I include a picture of my kids? A, because my kids were super adorable when they were babies. They're still pretty cute. They're a pain in the butt now, but they're pretty cute back then. It's still cute, like I said. But look, so Mark's a parent, and I intentionally was trying to tug at his parenting heartstrings to get him to go, oh man, these kids are cute. Let me keep reading, like keep reading, because I need you to keep reading, because at the end of this thing, I'm gonna make an ask, but I gotta get you to get to the email so you can get to the ask. So I'm also an advocate for parents, entrepreneurs via my blog. Bam, link to my blog and my book. The more you hustle, the luckier you get. You can be a successful parentpreneur is on Amazon. If he clicks on that link, he will see the reviews are phenomenal. Some people have regarded it as the realest book about entrepreneurship they've ever read. But once again, put the links in there so people can check you out if they want to. All right, so now I'm currently featuring exceptional parentpreneurs on my blog to inspire millions of people around the world to be the best parent entrepreneur they can be. Would you be kind enough to, now it's for the ask, right? Would you be kind enough to share your insights to help parentpreneurs press through the unique challenges they face? This is especially necessary given the coronavirus. It's only 5 questions. If you agree, I'll send over the questions. So look, it's only 5 questions. I'm trying to make it very, very, very easy for him because Mark Cuban gets thousands of emails a day, right? Mark Cuban don't know me from a can of paint, right? So thank you. So P.S. I'm also starting a foundation to give grants and other resources to the people who are parentpreneurs, to people who are parentpreneurs. You can learn more about that at this website. And back then, my website wasn't even live. I just had a splash page using LaunchRock, which is a great tool to just tell people about what you're doing, kind of a coming soon placeholder type thing. And it gives you the ability to collect email addresses and names so that when you launch, you have a list of people you can announce your launch to. So this email was within like 2 hours, he got back to me. His response was, okay. I'm like, wow, amazing, right? So then I'm trying to find a good email, a picture of him and his family to use as the feature image for the article. I couldn't find one. I said, hey, Mark, do you happen to have a good picture? He said, how about this one? This is a fun one. It's a picture of him and his son at a baseball game hanging out in a dugout. It's a minor league baseball team, I think, in Texas. And it was great. Like, this was my most widely read article ever on my blog. And, you know, Mark will from time to time still respond to my emails. I send him emails now, just updating him on the status of the foundation work that I'm doing. And, you know, he had somebody from he has a brand called a 3 comma brand, a 3 commas which is, for billionaire, they reached out to me and they sent me some swag. So I guess he's still hanging with me, even though he doesn't always respond to my emails. And that goes back to what I said before about not taking rejection personally. He hasn't told me to stop emailing him yet. So I don't stop emailing him, because eventually, one of two things or three things is going to happen. He's either going to agree to come, do a webinar in my community, send a little inspirational video or something like that, so that I can share with people in my community, or he's going to write us a check to support the work that we're doing. So I don't stop emailing him. I'm not a pest. I email him, maybe once a month, once every 2 months, whatever, but I keep him in the loop. Next slide. All right, tips and resources to shoot your shot. So I talked a little bit about sending cold emails. So there's 3 tools that I know of that can help you get just about anybody's email. One is called Voila Norbert. The other one is rocketreach.co. And the last one is getemail.io. Of those 3, getemail.io is my favorite because I find it to be the most consistent. All 3 of them will give you some free monthly credits. I think getemail.io gives you 10 free credits a month. But GetEmail is really great because it lets you scrape somebody's email address off of LinkedIn, which it makes sense to me that that's the most reliable, because your email address on LinkedIn is legit, right? They're not having to search too hard for that. So I prefer getemail.io, and I will tell you that. So when I use getemail.io, sometimes I will just send an email, or sometimes I will also on LinkedIn send a connection request. So let's talk about LinkedIn for a second as a tool for networking and making connections. Using LinkedIn, if you try to connect with somebody, I will encourage you to use the note feature. Send a note. You get 300 characters to send a note. For me personally, I'm very intentional about how I use LinkedIn. A lot of people use LinkedIn like Facebook. That does not work for me. Why? Because if I'm trying to get connected to Jane, and I'm connected to John, and John's connected to Jane, but my connection to John, I don't really know John. I can't go ask John for a connection to Jane. But most likely, if I do know John, because John's probably treating LinkedIn like Facebook too, John actually doesn't know Jane and can't introduce me to Jane anyway. So like people, you got to be intentional, and not for nothing. I don't know if you guys know this, Colin, but I saw the president of NASDAQ's name mentioned in a post on LinkedIn. I sent him a LinkedIn connection request, and I used every single last one of those 300 characters. I milked those suckers to death, man. I sent him that connection request. He got back to me, accepted my request, asked me for my email address, and then sent an email introduction to Nicola, which is how I got connected to you guys. So that thing works, man. Like, shoot your shot, use LinkedIn, be intentional about what you do. It works. So another interesting new tool that one of my guys just turned me on to. I haven't used it yet, but I know somebody in my community has used it, and she's had some success with it, like right away. It's called Apollo.io. I believe it's a free resource where you can search for people with different job titles and backgrounds, has a really robust filter capability, I believe. And then you could send them emails, and then you could automate the follow-up emails, which is huge, right? So you don't have to remember to do that. So when I was talking about just reachout.io, I don't use that anymore. So Respona.com is an interesting platform. It's about $145 a month. But if you get a couple of good hits on this, man, it's well worth it. But they will help you figure out who's talking about your space in podcasting, the news, blogs, etc. Give you the person's email address, and then it will also help you craft an email to send to them, and then automate follow-up emails to them. Very, very cool. So next, what's the best way to get PR? So this tip came from my buddy Mario Armstrong that I mentioned. The best way to get PR is to insert yourself into an existing conversation. So for example, just imagine if you invented a product that could, an app on your phone, for example, that would alert you when you were within 6 feet of the COVID-19 virus. Do you think that thing would be all in the media? You bet it would, right? Because right now it's all COVID, 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 COVID. You inject yourself into that conversation with a remarkable product, that's a winner. Like, you will get PR all the time from that, using that approach. So the other thing I will tell you is, in order to get PR, you need to be remarkable, or your product or service needs to be remarkable. So make sure you have a very compelling and clear value proposition, and be able to articulate that very quickly and succinctly to people. And next, PR does not necessarily equal cash flow. This right here is one of the most important things to take away from this thing, because you can get a super dope, big splashy hit, and it might not do what you think it should do from a traffic or sales standpoint. It just, like we got that first Martha Stewart hit, and it didn't send a ton of traffic. I was like, well, what the heck? But then they got syndicated on Yahoo, and we had 7,000 visitors to our website in 2 days, and we got a bunch of sales from that. So just be mindful from that. And I also want to share with you, so Seth Godin is, he's actually been helping us in our community. He did a fireside chat when we first started. He's actually coming back to do another one next week. And he's been giving away marketing scholarships to his marketing workshop for members of our community. But one of the things that he said last year, and this was like some of the best marketing advice you will get for 2021, is, PR is in large part about getting attention. And we talked a little bit about some of the benefits of it too. But he said it's better, or long-term will long-term be better to find a way to get your customers to tell 10 of their friends about your business. And I took that in. I've taken it to heart, because initially I was doing a lot of PR stuff, and I'm still doing some PR stuff with the ParentPreneur Foundation. Like, we just got on the radio here in Atlanta, and I was on WSB TV here, and we got about 150 new members in our community. So it did help from that standpoint. But I also took to heart the referral thing, and I fired up a referral program, an ambassador program. And right now we're at almost 2,000 members in the community, 1,200 members, I'm sorry, which is almost 20x greater than it was in August when we started this thing. And 15% of our membership comes from member referrals, which is phenomenal. So I think that's really good marketing advice for you guys. Yes, PR is cool. It can be helpful. It can lead to sales. I would say we probably got north of $60,000 in sales from the Today Show hits over the years. Our best customer spent about 20 grand from the Today Show. I got another guy, he's probably close to like 10 grand now in sales with us over the years. But in terms of who should you be targeting to get PR? Like, everybody wants the big, super splashy national media hit, right? Like, I mean, heck, I wrote a press release when I launched the foundation. I looked up a couple months ago. I didn't even notice it. It landed on Yahoo somewhere. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that. But the chances of you getting a hit like that, they're not as good. You got a better chance of starting where you live. Like, what's your local newspaper, your local radio station, your local bloggers? I would start there, and that's can be great, because that's a way for you to hone your skills, to cut your teeth, so to speak, while the stakes are low, right? You don't want to be reaching out to the USA Today reporters with a terrible pitch, because you're only going to get one shot to shoot that shot, right? And even if your shot's great, which I'm pretty good at it, they still ignore me over there, but they won't for long. Anyway, so start in your local community. I remember back when I was living in Northeast Wisconsin when I started WeMontage. I sweet talked my way onto Good Day Wisconsin, a morning show, as to do a segment. My blog was called Trep Life Dad, and I was Trep Life Dad, and I was going on there and I was cooking, because young twins, and I was a primary cook for the family. And I went on there and I cooked food and I talked about entrepreneurship. So, nobody else was doing that, right? So you got to be creative. You got to get in where you fit in. Like, look for opportunities. There's There's no like cookie cutter way to do some of these things. You have to be creative, you have to be remarkable, and you got to be compelling. So just think about that. And finally, as I talked about this before, shooting your shot is a mindset. You know, I gave you some tips and tricks here, but like get your mind right. You can do this. You don't have to hire a publicist because they can be very expensive. And look, not for nothing, I spent a lot of money working with publicists at the beginning of my time with WeMontage. And all those things I told you I did that on my own. I mean, I only got like maybe one real sparkly, we got a mention in a Wall Street Journal article. It wasn't even about us, but that didn't do anything because it was just one of our customers got interviewed. But you can do this on your own. You don't have to pay a publicist. Like you can do it, shoot your shot, get your mind right. You can get it done. So that's it. How to get PR for your business without a publicist. That's my email address, james@ParentpreneurFoundation.org. I'm around. I'm virtual schooling my 8-year-old twin, so I'm crazy busy, but I'm happy to help. And reach out if you have any questions and I can help.
Awesome. Thanks so much, James. That was terrific and also very insightful. I think a lot of founders, especially probably on this webinar because they're attending, place a lot of importance on using publicists and PR agencies to get their name out there. But as you mentioned, you gotta get good at shooting your shot. And those are the ones that usually can result in some big benefits. So we're opening up for Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, drop them in. We also have some pre-submitted questions from those of you who are curious ahead of this webinar. James, I believe this was just in your last slide, but they were saying, what was the name of the launch site that you used, the landing page? Was it the Rocket Space one?
Oh, LaunchRock? Is that what you're talking about? LaunchRock.co. I don't think it's .com. I think it's .co.
All right, LaunchRock. So hope that one helps. All right. What other social media platforms do you use to get some exposure?
What other social media platforms do I use to get exposure?
You mentioned LinkedIn.
Yeah, so right now I am almost exclusively focused on LinkedIn and Twitter. Yeah, I mean, like Twitter, it's been amazing as a fundraising tool. We just recently, like one of the VCs that I got introduced to, I sent them an update to let him know we just did another round of grants for our members in our community. I was just sending him an update and he retweeted it. He was like, all right, everybody, I'm matching the first $5,000, you know, in contributions. Just show me the receipts. I was just like, wow. So then I sent that to David Cohen over Techstars. I'm like, hey, David, this is amazing. Like, how can we blow this out? David's like amplifying. And then David jumps on Twitter. He said, I'm matching $5,000 too. Right. And then I get an email from Mark, and he's like, yeah, one of my partners here at the firm, he's going to toss in $5,000 too and match. I'm like, that thing was crazy. Right. So that's Twitter. So that's why I'm on Twitter. And I got people like always like DMing me, how can I help? You know, that's Twitter. And so that's the one thing I will say on these social media platforms. If you have a clear mission and value proposition, I know a lot of times looks like people are not paying attention, but they are. I mean, just last week, one of my cohort mates from my accelerator, Joe, I don't think Joe's ever comments on anything I've ever posted on LinkedIn. Joe sends me a DM. He said, yo, I saw, you're doing a great job. I saw that last cohort you just did. I saw the guy who has this smart mouth, this hardware software product, because Joe's product software, so hardware software. He said, I know how hard that is. I want to support him. I'm going to match the $1,000 grant too and connect me to him. And I want to help him avoid some of the mistakes that I made earlier on in the process. So like be consistent, like show up all the time. Don't be spammy or salesy. Deliver value, show your receipts. And oh, by the way, on LinkedIn, so the thing that happened on Twitter, I posted that on LinkedIn 3 weeks later, some random guy posted in a comment, hey, I want to match too. I connect with him. He's like, how do I match? I sent him information 10 minutes later. He's like, here's a screenshot. He sent $5,000 too.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, man.
Related to that last question on social media, somebody in the chat, and if you guys have questions, please put them in the Q&A box so I can get through all of them so I don't get lost in all this. But question that I get all the time from our community is, what do you think about using influencers? And I believe what they're referring to is paying people to promote your product.
Look, man, I have never done it. I know it's big business, so I guess it's working for somebody, but you know, like I just said, I don't, my swag is on 10. I don't need to do that. Just say it. And the other thing for me, huh?
I think that's great advice. I think a lot of, if people aren't already making some noise about your product and you don't have a community around it, I think.
Yeah, right. And the other thing is, I know people want to take a shotgun approach, but I'm anti that. I'm more like, so I'm going to date myself. You remember the movie Platoon with Tom Berenger? And then Tom Berenger did another movie called Sniper. And Tom Berenger was like, one shot, one kill. I'm like Tom Berenger. I'm Sniper. I'm one shot, one kill, man. You know what I mean? I'm going to take my time and research my target. And then I'm going to figure out who on my network can get me to that person. Or I'm just going to shoot my shot and send an email. Like, so a lot of the money we've been raising in this community has just been on the back of, some of our benefactors. Hey, can you introduce me to so-and-so? Right now, it doesn't happen right away. I got to chase a little bit, but I know on the strength of a credible introduction like that, I will get where I want to go 80% of the time. So yeah, I don't do the influencer thing. That's just me though.
That's super good advice, my friend. All right, around a little bit about a couple questions around the cold emails. First one is, do you suggest a short cold email or longer? And then the second is, how soon should you follow up after the first cold email?
So I feel like we talked a little bit about the email. Don't send a novel, man. Like, nobody's going to read it. I get emails all the time. I'm like, hey, how did I get on your list? So I don't even know you. Like, why are you emailing me? And then it's like all these words. Like, I have ADD. I'm not reading all the words. I'm not, right? So no, right between the eyes, man. One shot, one kill, right between the eyes. Have a good subject. Be relevant. Understand who their target is. It's all the things that we just talked about, right? Put a link, make an ask, get out the way. When should you follow up? Maybe like a week. I mean, I would follow up 2-3 times max. After that, they're not getting back to you. They're just not interested. I would just move on.
Super helpful. Yeah, I mean, I think your advice on the LinkedIn thing is you've got 300 characters applies a little bit on email. With me, at least, if I get a page of information, I'm like, oh, I'll get to this later. But if
or never.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Delete. That goes right to the trash bin.
Yeah. So very, very helpful. Ooh, this is an interesting one. So somebody says, what do you think of the following statement? There is no such thing as bad publicity.
I don't know, man. Like, so that West Texas Investors Club thing, I don't know. They edited that, my appearance on that show, and created a false narrative, and it was not a good look. I thought it was embarrassing. I didn't like it, and it was embarrassing. Like, I can't go into the details of that because I got this non-disclosure thing I signed, this confidentiality agreement that's like $1 million per breach. Even though the show is canceled, I might still get a call from an attorney, so I can't talk about it. But I'll just say, I don't know if that's true. In my experience, I didn't like that. I thought it was embarrassing. They made up a story. That wasn't exactly what happened. And actually, I thought that they used like these racist tropes to explain why I didn't get a deal. And I was just like, seriously? Like, those are the stories you want to tell? Really? But I couldn't do anything about it. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know.
Well, sorry to hear about that. And I'm glad it didn't last.
Exactly. That's why it's canceled, because it sucked.
Yeah. All right. All right, we got a question on email structure. So how do you structure the emails to potential clients?
I think if you go look at the email, so you guys are going to share the deck, right? Yeah, you just got to be brief. Like, here's who I am. Here's what I do. Put a link, right? Tell them what you do and make an ask. Boom, 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 and get out.
Love that. And do your homework too.
Yes,
What the
do
person
your
does.
homework.
Yeah. Let's see. PR and social media is linked to this person's name. But the PR they're getting just mentions their name, not their company. So how do you turn that PR towards from their personal to their business?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
So somebody's calling their name out, but not their company, I guess. So how do you redirect that to pointing towards?
Who's calling the name out? Somebody in the media?
Yeah, or on LinkedIn, I think. So somebody's saying like, Colin is doing this great things, but they're not saying the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center, for instance.
Well, if they're tagging you and somebody clicks on your name, that would be in your profile, right?
Yep.
If you know the person, you could always ask them to go back and edit the comment to put NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center in the posts. I mean, I wouldn't waste any social capital on something like that. You know what I mean? Because somebody's not going to want to go do that. If this is unless it's somebody you have a really good relationship with, they'll just do it. But I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, you have to have a lot of productive activity, because that's just like trying to make a wish that somebody's going to care because it says the name of your company in there. Most likely nobody's going to care, right? So just you be the one that's responsible for showing up every day, consistently delivering your value proposition, like bringing the smoke, showing the receipts, doing that. Like, that's on you, not for somebody else mentioning your name.
It's good advice. Let's see, this one's long, but I'll try to get to the meat of it. So B2B business featured in an article in a relevant B2B magazine, but they are also a guest writer for another high readership website. Neither allows them to backlink and not seeing any business or website traffic for them. Yep. Should they continue, or is it just a waste of time?
So to make sure I understand this, somebody's writing for a B2B magazine and they're not getting anything out of it?
Yep, and it doesn't allow them to backlink.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. I mean, I used to contribute for a lot of places like that. I just quit because it's a waste of time. Like, especially if they're not going to promote your content, it's just a waste of time. So now if you need to improve your writing skills, right, you get something out of it. And presumably they're not paying you, because, most places don't pay for content. They think exposure. Like, look, I got 8-year-old twins. My kids don't eat exposure. You know what I'm saying? They don't eat likes and shares and whatnot. But once you get to the point where you feel like your writing skills are up to par, like, I would bounce, man. I wouldn't waste my time. Unless you have the time and just like doing it, but I wouldn't do it. I would bounce.
It's a great piece of advice. Okay, so another one around coming up with clear messaging and value props. This is sort of similar to what you were just talking about. It sounds like some people may need their help crafting their message, their why, their story. Is there any recommendations on hiring somebody to help craft this for you, or should you work on it yourself?
Look, man, that's your responsibility. You could hire somebody to do it, but that's your responsibility. Like, a good book is Starting with Why, Simon Sinek, right? Read that. Go read Purple Cow, Seth Godin's book. Like, go watch some of Seth Godin's videos. He's big on like empathy. And so I'm in Seth's marketing workshop class, and let me tell you, man, that thing is in no small part responsible for why my messaging is so tight right now, and it's resonating, and this is landing, and people are like, can I donate $1,000? Right? Because I understand who my customers are. So it's not just the people who are the Black parentpreneurs, but it's also the people who are donors who care about issues affecting those people. So anytime I write something, I'm talking to two different potential audiences, right? But I understand, like I wrote the most beautiful thing I've ever written, Colin, as a result of being in that class. So yeah, that's your responsibility. You could hire somebody to do it for you, but it would be better if you could figure that out on your own, because now you own it and it becomes part of you, and now it gets in your subconscious somewhere, and now it just kind of starts to germinate, right? And blossom and develop. So I would encourage you to figure that out on your own. Somebody made a comment about oh, you can publish articles directly on LinkedIn to gain exposure and credibility. Yeah, you can, but the problem is nobody really sees those published articles when you publish them like that on LinkedIn. You're more likely to get your content seen by posting a post in your regular activity feed. But the plus side of that is I think Google is indexing those LinkedIn articles. So if you want to roll the dice and hope you get lucky and somebody sees your article from Google and link whatever you wrote about on LinkedIn, I wouldn't do that. Most likely that's going to be on the second page, unless you're writing about 500-pound mice with one red eye and one blue eye with purple fur. That's very specific. You'd probably be the #1 for that on Google, right? But you're better off just posting inside of LinkedIn or the regular activity. You could put some relevant hashtags, tag some people. But even then, it might not really work. But then what happens even if it does work? Because I had a couple of posts here in the last 6 months that, got a lot of views. I was like 10, 11, 12,000 views. So what? That's getting attention. That didn't do anything. Just on the back of what that specific thing was about, I will tell you, it didn't really do anything. It didn't really get me a bunch of new members from my community. It damn sure didn't get me any people who's like, oh, this is great, let me make a donation. So, just be intentional about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and just don't be so thirsty for like attention, because once you get the attention that you work so hard to get, then what? Like, was it a proper use of your time? You know what I mean? What's the ROI on that?
Totally. And I mean, the founders' stories evolve, right? It's kind of like stand-up comedy, right? You tell your friends if they think it's interesting and ask you more questions, then you're onto something. If they get real confused, then it's back to the basics of just trying it out. So stories evolve too.
Yeah. So somebody wants to know the alternative to just reach out. It's respona.com. They're going to share that. I think she shared the deck. Did she share the deck?
Yep. Deck.
Yeah, the deck is up there. Shared. It's toward the back of the deck. It's respona.com.
Yep. Awesome. Let's see. So on your influencers comment, somebody's, and I believe somebody was like, yes, we can be our own influencers before in the comment box. But how long do you think it would take them to become their own influencers and to make publicity? 3 to 6 months or more time?
Say that again.
They're asking how long it would take to potentially get more publicity and exposure by being their own influencer.
I mean, it depends, right? There's no silver bullet. It just depends. Again, if you built an app that would buzz on your phone, if COVID was within 6 feet of you, you would have articles tomorrow, right? It just depends. But if you just have like another app where you're trying to put Uber out of business, nobody's going to write about it most likely. So somebody says you disagree. LinkedIn pushes articles, and they recently launched the newsletter feature. My publishing articles on LinkedIn also generated paid writing gigs for me as well. That's awesome. That hasn't been my experience, but that's working for you. That's great. Like, milk that thing. That's awesome.
That's great. One question that I thought would be interesting for this group, who's asking a bunch of great ones, so keep them coming, gal. This one's around subject lines and cold emails. Any advice other than keep it short?
Yeah, so you could Google, I would just Google good email subject lines, right? So this is somewhat unrelated, but somewhat related. There's this great tool called copy.ai. Yo, go check that thing out, man. If you need copy for like blog posts or ads for social media, that thing is amazing. And they have like this free tier. That thing's amazing.
Awesome. And somebody else on the call says, was just going to mention copy.ai. They love it.
Yo, that thing is amazing. Amazing.
That's great. All right, people are asking for your deck, so that's great. We're going to give everyone that in the follow-up email, and also it's been in throughout this chat conversation.
Cool.
If you care about personal privacy, how can you get the company PR without being the face of the company? Interesting question.
Oh boy. I don't know. That's a great question. I don't care about privacy. That's a great question. So you land an article, an interview from a writer from the Wall Street Journal, like who are they going to talk to? I mean, they're talking to you, right? So they're talking to you. They're going to mention an article that they were talking to you. Any quotes will be attributed to you. So I think maybe you might need to get somebody else to do the interview. I guess. I don't know.
No, that's great advice. I mean, I personally connect with founders, not companies, right? Because founders are humans.
That's it.
Companies, the thing that solves problems.
That's it. People want to talk to humans. They, what's the tension? Like, what's the story? That's you as the founder.
Mm-hmm.
And we live at a time right now where everybody's oversharing. It's just a lot of sharing. I mean, the people in their hospital beds taking pictures. I'm like, that's too much. I don't need to see all that. That's just me. I'm old like that.
Love that. We had another question that came in that I thought was interesting. Okay, so let's say you go viral and your shot lands.
Yeah.
How do you suggest managing all the inflow? I mean, you've seen it from getting on TV, all those things. Like, I'm sure that's a little bit overwhelming if you're already managing a day-to-day business.
Yeah, but none of the things I did ever went viral. It's just like trying to catch lightning in a bottle. So, I mean, sometimes, like, I know people, they're like, what's all this traffic coming to my website? Oh, BuzzFeed just picked up something I'm doing. But even that's most likely not going to crash your website, right? So the first time we got on the Today Show, actually, our website crashed. It was down for 2-3 minutes. I literally spent the rest of the day, because we were really fast. We put up a little splash page apologizing, contact us here. Here's a discount code. I spent the rest of the day getting back to those people, man, after being down for like 3 minutes. It was crazy. So, but other than that, I don't think anything I've done has gone like viral, whatever that means, right?
Well, no, if your inbox starts exploding from all the attention.
What is that? It's all relative, right? I mean, I've never, the problem that person's talking about, I've never experienced that problem. That's what I call a first class problem, man.
Love it. Let's see. Oh, somebody was asking about the TED Talks that you mentioned. One is Purple Cow, and then the other one was Simon Sinek's The Why, right?
Starting with Why.
Starting with Why.
Yeah.
And then the Seth G class you mentioned.
Huh?
What was the Seth G class you mentioned?
Seth Godin, his Akimbo marketing workshop, Akimbo, AKIMBO. He has a new session starting March 8th. So the workshop is like $750, but man, it's worth it. If you have the money, man, that thing, it's a lot of provocative work. Yeah, it's good.
That's great.
Good. It's good.
All right, James. Well, we're almost at time, and thank you so much for sharing, about your journey, what you're building. We love what you're doing over at ParentPreneur Foundation, and just really appreciate you sharing your insights with our community.
Yeah, happy to help, man.
PR and exposure is something that everybody wants, but not a lot know how to get. So
that's right.
We will follow up with all the recording of this for everybody who missed a little bit of it and want to tune back in. The link to James's slides, links to James's books, and to a cool podcast he was on recently with Techstars. But James, thank you so much for joining us today, and we really appreciate the time. If you all want to see James again on a panel that we're hosting this Thursday, join us because that's going to be a great panel Be What You See. It's our Mentor Makers event, celebrating Black history. But here at the center, as James, I'm going to steal this from you. We celebrate Black founders every day. And if you want to check out that article,
that's right, man. Give people their flowers now. Don't wait till 50 years from now when they're dead. Makes me mad. Knock it off.
Check that out. Also, tomorrow we have a B2B sales presentation / fireside chat where you can ask a sales expert anything. James and everybody who tuned in today, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you back online soon. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, James.
All right, man. Thanks, buddy. See you later.